Hello, what's up, everybody? This is the Fantasy Football Channel. We are the Schluter Bros. Today, we are talking about maybe the sexiest team for fantasy football this year. That is the
Ow, ow.
Cincinnati Bengals. Comment below. What do you think? Are they the sexiest fantasy team this year, 2025? What's up, Adam? How you doing?
Man, I am thrilled to be here. How are you doing?
Living the dream.
Love it. Love it. Love it. We've been covering a lot of bottom half of the teams in the league so far, trying to get through some of the dusty, some of the low-hanging fruit. So I am very excited to get through the
This is a big
Bengals
dog. This is
today.
the big dog.
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, can I get your best Bengals noise over there?
It's also my Jaguar, so whatever one's closer, I'll take.
Yeah, yeah, that'll work. We'll take it. The fans will love it. Folks, we're going through the Bengals today. We're going to break them down, all their players. We do have some good breaking NFL news that just came out today, which we're going to be excited. We'll touch on that. We'll go through an O-line breakdown, coaching changes, any roster additions to this Bengals team. Crack a beer and let's get at it, folks. Before that, though, we're starting with a segment. We're going to have a little fun one here today, a little Would You Rather segment. And it's not going to be too serious, but it is going to be a little comical here. I'm going to get the ball rolling. Kyle, are you ready?
Are you answering me? Am I going first or are you asking?
I'll ask you the first couple.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, First one being, would you rather draft a player in a terrible offense who gets a lot of volume? An example being Ramondre Stevenson a couple years ago, or a very talented guy in a split backfield.
I would go talented guy and split backfield.
Why is that?
Well, just in your two examples here of Ramondre Stevenson or James Cook drastically outperformed, and a better offense, more big plays, more touchdowns. However they come, it's more exciting. That's how I look at that. You think like Montgomery and Gibbs years past, right? You'd rather have one of those guys than a mediocre Stevenson somewhere. And if that other player ever were to go down, you have potential for a top five RB on your hands.
Yeah, that's a good point. Minus the Montgomery Gibbs example, I actually disagree with you. I'm all about volume, all about, getting as many carries as you can. Just because if there's no one else to go to, you don't have to worry about who's in the backfield because I hate that. I hate that when you're like, God, my guy's not even in there. What the, it just nothing infuriates me more than that. But all right, fair enough. Um,
Okay, you
Next
want
one,
me? I'll ask you next. You ready?
all right, what you got?
Would you rather win your league and lose your buy-in due to league drama, or come in second and win double your money?
I'm a pretty prideful guy. I'd take the win your league, and you can
I'm the
forgo the
same.
money.
I'm
I
the
would like
same.
to celebrate, put some salt in some wounds. You can keep the $100.
Yep, that's how I'd feel.
All right, this one I like. This one. This one made me chuckle when we came up with this one here.
Okay, go.
Would you rather start Daniel Jones every week or have to live stream yourself benching Lamar Jackson?
Come on over, Lamar. Let's do it. I'm benching Lamar. There's no way I'm doing Daniel Jones all season.
Oh God, come on! There's some rushing upside there.
I don't care. I'll hang out with Lamar.
All right.
All right, last one. Would you rather have your kicker outscore your RB1 3 weeks in a row or lose to someone who started a guy on IR?
Oof. I'll take the kicker outscoring my RB1 3 weeks in a row. Little foreshadowing here. Justin Tucker, he can put up 20 back when he was playing in his prime. So,
Yep, I'll second that one.
all right. Good
Okay,
deal.
good deal. Let's get into the drama. We got a little
Drama time.
breaking news. You want to tell about the trade here?
I absolutely do. My secondary team in the Miami Dolphins got after it. They traded away Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey, along with a seventh round 2027 pick to the Steelers. The Aaron Rodgers effect is already in place. In return, the Dolphins get Minka Fitzpatrick, a phenomenal safety,
Pro
28
Bowl
years old, and
safety.
a 2027 fifth round pick. So really, them and Jalen Ramsey were having issues. So I knew he wasn't going to be on this team for this whole year anyway. But they got rid of Ramsey and Jonnu Smith, and Jonnu Smith went off last year. He did
Yeah,
great for
I'm
the
surprised
Dolphins.
by that.
So really, they upgraded their secondary a little bit at that safety position, upgraded their draft pick a little bit in the 2027 draft. But I was a little surprised by this because again, Jonnu Smith did phenomenal. But we can already tell that the Aaron Rodgers effect is in place, and they are trying to build around him. They are saying he must be calling up Mike Tomlin. Hey man, who are you getting me today? Give me
So
another
when does
weapon. Give me
Allen
another
Lazard come
weapon.
over?
I'm sure he'll be there by week 4.
All right. Next up, Justin Tucker, longtime
Oof,
Baltimore Raven kicker, phenomenal
he
kicker forever.
he took one out of Robert Kraft's playbook on this one. I'll let you explain it though.
The team released him on Monday, May 5th, after an NFL investigation into allegations of misconduct. Apparently, he likes a little dirty massage. Allegations involve 16 massage therapists from 8 Baltimore area spas who accused him of inappropriate behavior for quite a bit of seasons. So.
Sounds like a lot of seasons and a lot of allegations and a lot of massage therapists coming forward. It is not just one lady or two ladies. It sounds like it's a lot of ladies coming forward. It turns out he wanted more than his muscles massaged.
All right. And then Tyler Boyd, a little bit of noise, would absolutely play for the Steelers, currently a free agent, former wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah,
That would be interesting. He would be an upgrade in the receiver room behind DK Metcalf to me.
absolutely. And as we just talked about with that Aaron Rodgers effect, he's already looking at the free agents and seeing who they can add on this roster. Tyler Boyd, he's 30 years old. He did really well when he played for the Bengals. Even when he was the Bengals' number 3 wide receiver, he was still fantasy worthwhile. So if he thinks he said he's got a couple years left in him. I bet they get that deal done just because
Mhm.
that's what Aaron Rodgers forces GMs and owners to do, whether they like it or not.
And then the last thing about that news that we went over at John Smith, that just further hurts
Mm.
the Muth for me. I'm probably
Muth
out on him now because I don't know what to make of him.
100%. I mean, Johnny Smith is way more athletic, way faster, way better in the catching game. So, yeah, Moose value is now out the window, I'm afraid. And I was higher on him a couple episodes ago, but I now take that back. I swallow my tongue, and Johnny Smith now has some more value.
Okay, you want to get into the
Yeah,
overview
buddy.
of the Cincinnati Bengals? How'd they
Oh, I
do
would love to.
last year?
Last year I would say for the Bengals was a disappointing season. If it was like a Jets team or something, it would have been as disappointing. But for the Bengals, it's a disappointing season. They went 9-8, finished third in the AFC North, missing the playoffs. They started the season 1-4, so not pretty. They really had to dig themselves out of that hole all season long. On a positive note, they did finish the season on a 5-game win streak, so they really got their pieces going. They got some momentum going. But let's face some facts here. Their defense is abysmal. Okay,
Hmm.
their defense is terrible. That is the main culprit. There's one other culprit, but that is the main culprit why they did not get into the playoffs. However, on the flip side of that, with their defense being so terrible, that
It's
adds
good
a
for
ton of
fantasy.
value
It's
to
good
these
for
fantasy players.
fantasy.
When they keep having to score, I mean, they put up 27 points a game or 28? Yeah, 27.8 points per game. It adds value to the fantasy players on this pass heavy attack. Their total offense ranked ninth, 365 yards per game, a total of 57 touchdowns total. And they were 6th in scoring, like I said, 27.8 points per game. Passing rank number 1 in
Numero
the
uno.
NFL, 272 passing yards per game. On top of that, 43 passing touchdowns per game, which is most in the league, I might add. On the flip end of that, their rushing attack absolutely sucks. They were 30th in rushing, 92.6 yards per game, and 11 total rushing TDs. This team has every bit of potential to make a Super Bowl run because of their offense.
If their defense does anything.
But as we know, a terrible defense, you usually don't make an AFC or an NFC championship game if you have a terrible defense. So they've been trying to shore that up. They're in a tough division: Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Browns.
Yeah, those
Nonetheless,
top
that
those top three teams in this division are all very good.
very good, very good. And the Ravens and Steelers have much better defenses than the Bengals, so that's the reason why they finished third.
Hmm. Okay, well, let's jump into the fantasy players.
Oh, this is going to be a good
Joe
one.
Joe Burrow finished as QB3 last year. ESPN early projections have him at QB5. He threw for almost 5,000 yards, 4 to 3 touchdowns, 9 picks.
Yeah,
Epic season in my opinion. If
epic season.
if he did anything with his legs, I mean, he would be, higher up there.
He did
But
have 200 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, so not it's not completely vacant, but yeah, he's not much of a rusher. However, he led the NFL in pass attempts, completions, yards, and touchdowns. He's an absolute machine behind that offensive line. And then for ADP in a 2 quarterback league, his ADP right now is 5.4, so he's going to win that first round. And again, that's a 2 quarterback standard league. And now in a 1 quarterback standard league, his ADP is 40. So about the end of that fourth round, in between that fourth and fifth round, is where he's going within the drafts. This guy's an absolute machine. Last year was his first year being fully healthy in a while, and boy, did he take and run with that.
hmm yeah, I mean, I'm fine. I have him at QB 5 right now, so I'm exactly where ESPN has him for projections and whatever you do for your roster build. I'm fine with his ADP in either format.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the real difference is here. I mean, he's the best passing quarterback in the league right now with this passing offense. The real difference is with those other first 4 quarterbacks is that rushing upside. So that's why he's the number 5th quarterback. He doesn't have that rushing upside
Exactly.
as big as those other guys do.
And those other four quarterbacks being Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, and Hurts.
Yep, yep.
Those are
Is
the
there
only
any
four I would take above him.
is there any world where you take Joe Burrow before any of those 4?
There is, and
Tell me about that.
it would be if it was a league where if I had one or two of those guys already in a different league, I would then
Mm,
consider taking Burrow just to diversify there. Or if I had Chase, if I got Chase with my first pick, I would consider the DP and taking Burrow a little early just to have that sexy attack.
that would be very sexy. I mean, and to make that point, if you're in drafts, if you know someone else has Jamar Chase, do not let them get Joe Burrow. Um, do absolutely. I mean, you're gonna have to reach for them to make sure they don't get that DP because if they get that DP, that is a scary, scary, scary team.
Yeah. Okay. You want to say anything else about Burrow?
I mean, the
He's
dude's
got
a
the same
stud as long
system,
as he's
same
healthy.
cast around him. I mean, you just draft him with confidence.
Yep. I mean, last year, like I said, was his first full year healthy that we've seen in a couple of years between the knee and the elbow or wrist or whatever was going on with him. He looked healthy as a horse, and my God, did he do some great things last year? I bet that continues. Yeah, I mean, the only knock since we haven't knocked anything on him, and we'll get more into this. The only knock on Joe Burrow's offensive line, but we'll touch more on that in a little bit here. Let's
Okay.
move on to some of the special
Divas.
boys.
Jamar Chase, #1 overall finish. Projections, Diva #1. I mean, you can argue that with a couple other guys, obviously Justin Jefferson, CD Lamb, or whoever. But I have him as Diva 1, Jamar Chase. He had 1,700 yards last year and 17 touchdowns. He is well above the next guy. So that is a spectacular performance. And his ADP, pick 1 or 2 in one QB leagues.
100%. I mean, 100%. I mean, especially in a PPR league, half point or full point PPR, this guy should be the first guy off the board in 90% of those PPR drafts. I mean, he head and shoulders blew every other receiver out of the water. I think the next
hmm
closest guy in terms of fantasy points in a PPR was like 60 or 80
Yeah,
points beneath
it was
him.
around
There's
60
a
points
Yeah,
less.
it was a
Yeah.
cliff. So I
Yeah.
mean, when you have that much of a clear cut, better player with that much more volume and production, I mean, he's hands down going to go in the first couple picks. In standard leagues, does he go #1? Maybe he still could. Will he? I don't know, but nonetheless,
Yeah, standard scoring for me, I'd probably take Bijan over him just for
yeah,
the running back.
yep,
PPR, I would take Chase #1 overall.
yep.
One
Circling back to
QB.
Chase here, most routes ran, most targets, most receptions, most yards, most touchdowns, and most end zone targets in the NFL last year. So there isn't one piece of his portfolio that is missing. The one minor, not knock, but the one thing I can say, I was searching through some data since 2021. No player has managed after they were the #1 wide receiver. No player has finished to be a top 5 wide receiver in the next consecutive season.
Mm.
So that's always that, a little bit of angle there where it's like, can he do it again? It's very hard to be a repeat offender as a number one receiver. So that, it makes me nervous a little bit. However, in his career, he's always, I think, top 12 or top 5 in most of his seasons. So it's not like it's a huge drop off by any means. This
Yeah, I
guy's an
think
absolute.
for me it's he's number one on my board for receivers. You don't really I would throw that stat out the window, honestly. It's gonna be
I
just
had to poke some holes in him. I had to find something.
it's just gonna be it'll be the draft pick, right? You need a top three pick on most formats to even have him in contention. Otherwise, most people aren't gonna get the chance to draft him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And if for some reason anyone out there picks a receiver in front of him, you better be heavily intoxicated in order to justify that, because there's no world where anyone else receiver wise should be going in front of this cat.
Yeah, talent wise, I like you could see Jefferson or CD. CD, but I don't think it's a good enough offense, good enough connection with quarterback and system there. Jefferson, I'm a little lower on this year with the quarterback. Granted, Darnold did, prove that Jefferson is pretty much quarterback proof. However,
Sure.
I'm not going to double down on that over Jamar Chase.
Yeah, we don't know anything about McCarthy yet and his
Yep.
ability in terms of the
hmm
NFL, so that is totally fair.
Okay, we'll go to Diva 2, T. Higgins, who I think is the best NFL wide receiver 2 on any team.
Absolutely, without a doubt. There is no doubt about it. Let's face facts here. Do you have any questions with this? This is the best wide receiver duo in the league.
Yes, I agree.
I don't even think anyone's close. You talk Eagles, Dolphins, a couple other ones,
I
but
do think CD
Buccaneers.
and Pickens is very talented.
Yep, and that's
I'm
that's a
going to put
fresh one
them up
though.
there. It is
Yep, that's a
fresh.
fresh one though. And then Vikings with Jefferson and Addison. But yeah, this is a clear cut best wide receiver duo in the league.
hmm
T. Higgins finished wide receiver 19th last year. There's a little caveat though. He missed what, 4 games, 5 games?
Four or
Yeah,
five games. hmm
yeah. So he was able to finish as a top 20 wide receiver with missing a fourth of the games.
hmm
That is extremely impressive. ESPN early projections has him going wide receiver number 11, so just outside of the top 10. The Bengals almost have 2 guys projected as top 10 wide receivers, which is just out of this world.
It's a number
With
one
it,
passing offense, so that's where you're going to get it, right?
yep, yep. And in
Bad
12
defense to
games,
boot.
yep. No, you're not wrong. In 12 games last year, 73 catches on 109 targets, 911 yards, 10 touchdowns. So between him and Chase, 27 touchdowns just between the two of those cats. T. Higgins right now, his sleeper ADP is 27 overall, which is just about closer to the end of the third round. With that said, if he's going 27 overall, do you like him above that, right where that is, or beneath that?
This is something I would really want to monitor as we get closer to the draft. Because I would like to have him and I have him on the dynasty squad. So
Mhm.
being that I have him on one team, I'm less likely to draft him on my other teams.
Mr.
However,
Diversification.
however, I think around that range, I really like him.
Mhm.
I would rather have the other pieces though, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, if I were to
Of course.
pick.
Of course, but that comes at a cost. That comes at a
Yes.
much, much greater cost. In terms of this ADP, I bet he goes in most drafts earlier than this 27 overall. I've done a couple mocks and I've done a couple drafts with some people. People are reaching for him. And the one concern I have with him is his durability. He's been injured in the past and quite a bit. I don't know if he's had a full season in the past couple of years at all. He is only 26 years old. But nonetheless, his durability has been an issue. But if he's out there for the full season, my God, the numbers he'll put up with Jamar it's insane.
Yeah, some of the news on Sleeper is he's doing whatever he can this offseason to get his body in a better shape. He had a lot of soft tissue injuries last year, so he's trying to preserve himself and do what he can to get ahead of that. I
I
want
mean, you ever hear a report where a guy's like, "Yeah, no, I'm just taking it off, drinking beers. I'm not going to help my body at all this year." Of course, they're going to say that. They're all
uh
doing everything,
I'm
and meanwhile, they're
poolside with my
partying.
Mai Tais. I'm working on my
Yeah.
soft tissues.
Meanwhile, they're on boats and jet skis, putting their body at risk, living their best life,
Yeah,
spending
yeah.
millions. But
I do want
sure,
to
we'll
read
take it.
his last four games in a PPR last year at Tennessee. 20
Hmm.
points. At Cleveland, 20 points. Against Denver, 40 points. At Pittsburgh, 9 points.
Yep.
Like it is just the
Yep.
most dominant wide receiver two upside out of anybody in fantasy, in my opinion.
Yep. And what we briefly mentioned to add to this, you guys, is the defense is so bad. It's
Yeah.
not like the Eagles where they can crush a team in the first half and then
No.
coast their way and run it a couple times to end the game. They need to throw the entire game long.
Yeah.
And that's why they're the best passing team in the NFL because their defense is so bad. And like we talked about, that adds a ton of value to these guys. And that's why I think these guys will go, or at least for Higgins' sake, will go a little bit above their ADP due to that. And don't be shy to take them a little bit above their ADP due to that as well. And heaven forbid if something happened to Chase, Higgins' value just goes to an elite wide receiver one
Yep.
immediately.
Yep. Yeah, this offense is going to need 40 points a week to win, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 27.8 last year, so they're almost pushing 30 a game.
Okay, so
Anything else
we talked
on
about
those two?
the big two. I mean, they're sexy. You just draft them with confidence wherever you can.
Yep. Get some DP in there. If you can get Burrow and one of those cats on your team, that is a very rock solid foundation. It comes at a high cost, but it's rock solid.
Next up on the depth chart, Andrei Losivas and
Well done.
Jermaine Burton.
Wow, that was
Jermaine
smooth.
Jermaine Burton. Uh, um, these guys are tough for me. I see deeper league value, or if there was any injury to the big two, these guys could both be huge for fantasy. Outside of an injury to Chase or Higgins, in most formats, how do you feel about either of these guys?
So this has me a bit puzzled, and I'll tell you why. Because I think about back a couple years ago when Boyd was there. Tyler Boyd was a wide receiver 3, and
And
he still
he
put
put
up
up.
numbers. And
Yeah.
because I had him a couple times, and you
He
could
was
plug and play
fantasy
him as a
relevant.
flex, and it was
Hmm.
like, wow, these guys have not scratched the surface with that at all yet. I'm probably not drafting either one of these guys unless they're just hanging and hanging and hanging around in the draft, and I'm expecting one of these other two cats to get injured. With that said, Yoshivash 36 catches, 480 yards, 6 touchdowns. So that's not really fantasy relevant, a total of 83 fantasy points. But Yoshi Vash and Jermaine Burton are going to battle it out for that number 3 spot this year. And I think after the first couple weeks of the season, we're going to see who's going to earn that spot. Right now, it's leaning Yoshi Vash, but Burton does have a chance to take that over. And like we said, if either one of the top guys goes down, this immediately becomes a potential wide receiver number 2 on anyone's team. Do I want to
Potential.
draft either
Potential.
one? Again, I'm not reaching for either one of these cats, but we do love the high passing offense. We talked about the defense being terrible, so there's potential for one of these guys to really outperform. Yoshi
Yeah.
Vash finished wide receiver 58th, early projection 85th. So I don't know what's going on there. They're expecting him to fall off a cliff or something.
I mean, I think one of these guys has a chance to be fantasy relevant in a flex
Yep.
potentially, but you
Yep.
just don't know who it is yet and how they're going to be used. There's a lot of kind of hype on both these guys. One of the guys, Yoshi Vach, I think he bulked up quite a bit going into year 3, I believe. And then Jermaine Burton, though he's getting high coaches praise at camp. So
He's
take for that whatever you will. I don't think we need to, talk about these guys anymore. Really, to me, in most formats, they're a monitor, wait and see, but they're
yeah.
on my radar.
The thing is, Yoshi Vash gets drafted though, don't you think?
I mean, I don't, in most leagues probably not. I have him on the dynasty squad, but that's really deep,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different world.
and it
Okay.
was one of the later picks, so I don't know that they do.
Well, if neither one are drafted, keep your eyes on that. If one of these guys gets a good target share early on in the
Yep.
season, scoop them up, plug and play them just in case something happens.
Okay, let's talk running backs. Chase
Man, you
Brown
are you are high on this cat. You are high on him.
finished as RB 12.
Yep.
ESPN projection RB 13.
Yep.
His current ADP is about the 4th round. I have
33.
him as RB 12 right now. I
Wow.
have him
Right where he
uh,
finished last year.
right where he finished last year. And keep in mind how many guys led the backfield in the beginning of the season, right? And he still
Correct.
finished as RB 12. He's got hands. He doesn't
Hmm.
need all the rushes every game. He can catch and he can produce as a receiving running back. He can
Yep.
also be a first and second round guy. Like
Yep.
to me, he's an all around back. Yes, they got a couple other guys behind him. They got Moss, they got P. Ryan, but I mean,
Yep.
those are just old depth pieces, in my opinion.
They
He's their
are.
stud. They're going to relieve him.
Yep. Let me give everyone a refresher. So again, he finished RB12. Early projection is 13, which is back a slot, which may be confusing for some for him coming into his third year here because you're like, why would he regress? Well, the reason for it is Zach Moss went down in week 8 last year with a neck injury, which took him out the rest of the season. So in the beginning of the season, Moss had a majority of the carries weeks 1 through 4, like 60%. And then weeks 4 through 8, that majorly switched over in favor of Chase Brown. And then when he goes down in week 8, since that moment, Chase Brown played 88% of the Bengals snaps at the running back position. You want to talk about volume share, you couldn't get more of it, than that. I think that was probably
Mhm.
the most volume share out of any running back in the league. Okay, so that really allowed him to get all that volume, which helped him produce that much. So with a healthy Moss, if Zach Moss is there and healthy the whole season, does he produce as much as he did
Yes.
last year? You
Zach
think he
Moss,
produces it?
don't worry about Zach Moss. Sure, that 88% running back share could go down a tick. Chase Brown averaged 4.3 yards a clip. Zach Moss averaged 3.3 yards a clip. That's a full
Mm-hmm.
yard better. He's
Mm-hmm.
younger. He can catch better than Zach Moss. Like to me, it's not even close. Zach Moss, P. Ryan, they'll be reliever guys as needed to work into the offense. To me, Chase Brown is the fantasy relevant option here.
For sure.
And
No, I agree with that. But just the fact that 88%, if that goes to 70-30, that hampers his production a little bit where it might not be 12th overall. It might be a little worse than that. But to your point, there's more
I don't
upside
care.
potential there with him getting better. Fair enough. I mean, last year he averaged 18 carries, 5.5 targets, which is 23 touches per game, 116 total yards per game, and 20 fantasy points per game. I mean, those are some pretty gaudy, pretty nice numbers. But
Yeah.
again, we'll see that Zach Moss and P. Ryan effect. Obviously, both those older running backs are older, so they have a chance to get injured again. They do.
Chase Brown is just a much better and younger
Mhm.
player, and he can really do everything this offense needs. And that was with the bad offensive line. If the offensive line gets any better, like
Yeah.
Chase Brown, I'm very comfortable of having him as RB12. I mean, you could even make a case for him being higher.
Yep.
In the fourth round, I love that.
Yep.
This might be one of the picks that I would be even more comfortable taking earlier than ADP compared to the receivers. I mean, Jamar Chase, you can't. T. Higgins, I already have a little bit of, and Joe Burrow. I guess you can make a case for Joe Burrow as well, but I like this value of Chase Brown. I think this is going to rise. As we get close to the season, I think it's going to creep up.
Yep. No, that's fair. And then we mentioned a little bit, but PPR leagues, even more value here. We already know this is the best passing league in the NFL. PPR, if you're in a PPR league, get Chase Brown. I mean, I'd say 10 or even, 10 or within the
I
top
would have
10.
him higher
He had,
PPR.
because he had 54 catches last year, 360 receiving yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. So in PPR leagues, he has a ton of value, and it's the heaviest passing offense in the league. They're going to be behind. They're going to need him in the passing game. So yes, yes,
Yeah.
and
I
yes.
mean, let's look at his range of outcomes. I mean, he could be running back 5 in PPR. Like that is his range of outcomes.
Yep.
Or those other two guys get a little more work than I'm talking about. I mean, where does he go down to? RB 20 at the latest? I don't even think he would go that low. As long as he stays healthy, I think his fantasy points are way above that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. In standard leagues, does he has top 5 potential?
I wouldn't, maybe if he falls in the end zone enough.
Sure.
But
Sure.
it
Well, with
was
only,
a lot less likely.
yeah, with only 11 rushing touchdowns for the Bengals and a weaker offensive line, I don't know. In a standard league, I don't think he has top 5 potential. Top 10 potential? Yes. That's my take on it. And then PPR, top 5 potential? Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Moving on.
Why don't you talk about tight ends?
Well, you don't want to say anything about Zach Moss?
No,
He
I don't want
finished
to say
our.
anything about Zach Moss
I
because I
can tell
won't be
you're really
drafting
just
him.
shitting on
He
this poor
won't be
guy.
on my team.
Well, I'll just do a brief thing then. He finished RB 55, early projection 59th. We talked about the neck injury. He's 27 years old. He also can receive, he can catch the ball and run the ball well. So he is, and again, PPR leagues, he might be relevant depending on his total volume share and definitely handicap appeal for if Chase Brown goes down.
I give
So
you handicap
PPR
appeal.
appeal, PPR appeal and handicap appeal, yes. Outside of that, you're not thrilled to have him.
No. So what did he
And
have?
then
He
we
had
can
58
just,
points last year, and he
and then
played
can you just say
eight games.
Samaje's? Yeah.
That's seven. That's 7 points a week.
Can you say Samaje's last name one more time for me?
P. Ryan. That's how you
It's
say
good.
it.
Yeah, it's pretty close. We'll go with it. All right. Tight ends. Mike Gesicki, former Dolphins player from a couple years ago. He finished as tight end 17th. ESPN projection, early projections, 23rd. So they are regressing him here, which I will go on a limb and say I do not agree with that. His sleeper ADP is 188. So you can do the math on whatever round that is, but it's deep. Gesicki finished top 15 in tight end in routes, targets, catches, yardage, and end zone targets in 2024. Here's the big thing with Gesicki. He only had 2 receiving touchdowns. So if he can go to 4, 6, or 8 on that, he is going to progress a ton this year.
That
And
number
especially
really surprises me with the number one passing offense. Their tight end only has
only
two
2. And
receiving
they're doing him
touchdowns.
dirty. They're expecting him to regress 6 spots at the tight end position. I'm expecting him to get better at least a few, at like around 13, 14 tight end, because the end of last year, they did a lot better and they started throwing to him more and they kind of built a better connection. I think it was his first or second year with Burrow. So they got better towards the end of the year. There's massive touchdown progression potential, only 2 out of the 43. I think his rank goes up. So due to that, if you're punting at tight end position, and you need to stash 2 mid-grade to low-tier ones, I think this is a fine one to get on your team just because of the passing offense within this team and how much they're going to have to throw the football. Anything else there? Honorable mentions, tight ends, Drew Sample and Tanner Hudson. Yeah.
Let's look him up. Let's look him up. I'm curious what he did here.
Who, Gesicki?
Fantasy. Yeah.
Well, he had 65 catches, 665 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Total of 76 fantasy points in standard leagues.
Hmm.
So, 83 targets isn't terrible. It's not great. 65 catches, not terrible.
And that
And
was
like I
his
said,
first year with the Bengals.
yep.
Previously with New England, and then
And
spent
then,
looks like 5 seasons in Miami.
yep.
And that's yeah, okay. So I mean, I don't mind this for like a value if you don't draft a tight end,
Yep.
throw him on your roster somewhere. I think this could be an upside guy that doesn't cost you anything.
Yep. Like I said, and he was a boomer bust guy. 4 games, he had 14 plus points, and 11 games, he had 9 or fewer points. So if you find him on a good linebacker matchup situation against a mid to low defense, those are the weeks you plug him in and play him, and you hope to God he gets in that end zone for you.
Yeah, I mean, with the number one passing offense, like you want as many pieces of that as you can get.
Yeah.
So he's a good candidate for a flyer tight end just to see that doesn't cost you anything. If he's a little more involved or can catch a few more touchdowns this year and get to the spot where you're comfortable rolling him in your lineup a little more consistently, I could see that.
I got you to come around on him a little bit then.
If not, if it's, week 3, 4, he hasn't done anything, you just drop him and pick somebody else, roll with somebody else. It didn't cost you anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nope, that's fair. All
Okay.
right. We're going on.
Why don't you talk about the big boys?
The big and burlies, the offensive line. Earlier in this sode, I talked about how the defense was terrible and hindered the Bengals from the playoffs. Well, suspect number 2 is this
Oh,
offensive line because it is pretty hideous. It is not good, and that's part of the reason Joe Burrow has been injured all these times. But besides the point, left
yeah.
to right, left tackle Orlando Brown, Dylan Fairchild, Cordell Volson, Ted Karras, Lucas Patrick, and Amarius Mims. That's left to right. The defense on this team catches all the heat for being terrible, but this offensive line has to improve, and I have not seen enough acquisitions within this offensive line for it to improve. We talked about how their rushing attack was 30th in the NFL, not good. So what really makes this offense tick is their specialty players and Joe Burrow able to make plays. This is a big ailing factor on this team. I don't have a lot of love for this offensive line. I've seen Burrow get chased around all over heck. He still makes do with it, but this is an area that they need to continue to improve on in the offseason if they can.
I will throw in they do have a new offensive line coach and a new assistant offensive line coach.
for sure. And then forgive me, they did add Lucas Patrick and Dylan Fairchild. Lucas Patrick is a veteran, and Dylan Fairchild was a third round pick. So they were aware of this, and they did try to improve it a little bit. We'll see what they can do with it. But outside of that, I mean, last year it was a bottom 15 offensive line, and in order to make playoffs and win, get a chance at the Super Bowl, you got to be a top 10, top 15 offensive line, especially with that bad of a defense.
Even if the offensive line gets incrementally better, it helps.
It does.
You're much more excited. If you can give Joe Burrow another second back there, like that's going to be huge
That's a
for
lot of
him.
time. That
More
would be a lot of time.
importantly, just keep him healthy.
That is true. And
That's the
maybe they did
biggest thing.
with Lucas Patrick and Dylan Fairchild. Maybe they did make it incrementally better for you.
That's all they need. That's all we need. I'm just asking
All
for a
right.
little bit here.
All right. We'll wait and see with the offensive line. Why don't you take the coaching changes over?
Okay, yeah. So Zach Taylor remains head coach, entering his seventh year. I honestly, for how good this team is, I can't give him the credit. So I'm really mixed on him as a head coach. And they always have ridiculously slow starts to the season. The most
Yeah.
talented offense, arguably in the NFL, minus the offensive line. It's just like I don't know. But
Yeah, that's
anyways,
fair to put that on the coaching staff. I think that's fair. I mean, the coaches got to
where
get them
else
ready
do you
week
put
one.
it? I mean, Joe Burrow's injuries, it's like I granted one was a fluke training camp thing, but still you got to keep him healthy. You got to do whatever you can to protect that guy. That's the franchise there. And I don't know. So moving on. They did finally make a change on the defensive side of the ball,
Thank God.
right? So
Well,
Al Golden, defensive coordinator, returns to the Bengals after previously serving as the team's linebackers coach. And then I mentioned the offensive line coaching
I would have
change.
went with outside of the organization myself, but I'll let that be.
Yeah,
He was your linebackers coach, and now he's your yeah.
he left and now he's come
Hmm.
back. So he had a gap in between. He was at Notre Dame as our defense coordinator.
Oh, okay.
So yes, I mean any change is good there. Regarding their moves, we all know Jamar Chase got an extension. You want to talk about that?
Yep,
That
4 year,
was
161 million, highest paid nine quarterback position in the NFL. Also, they signed
woohoo!
Higgins to a 4 year, $115 million deal. This is making them the highest paid wide receiver duo in NFL history at approximately $69 million per year, going to two divas. They are worth it, but my God, they could have put a couple of those mills into the offensive line. But I'll move on here real quick. We're running out of time.
Yeah, so
Uh,
Jamar and T. Higgins, we talked you up on the show. If you guys want to hang out, we could rent some jet skis or whatever you guys like to do. We're here to
that'd
party.
be great. My tie's on
Um,
you guys, though.
and then Gesicki also got extended, 3-year deal looks like. And then they've made a lot of acquisitions on the defensive side of the ball, but it's really hard to say with the quarterback and the names, no big names. I think their two defensive ends are still holding out. I think Hendricks is holding out, their best
Oh,
player on defense. So those are going to be some things to watch. Why don't you
yep.
run through the draft
Dra-
picks?
Draft picks, they addressed what they needed to address, and that's what I give them credit for. They went edge rusher, linebacker, offensive guard, and Fairchild, who I mentioned, linebacker, offensive tackle, and then running back and Taj Brooks. So they are addressing the defense. They are very aware that their defense is terrible. They addressed it in the draft. We'll see how some of these players turn out. Outside of that, I am ready for a Bengals season and a high-powered
That's a
fantasy
wrap.
production.
Let's watch the Bengals this year and dominate those
Mm-hmm.
leagues with this exciting cast of fantasy football players.
Get yourselves a Bengals, folks.
All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.